You know, the press at large isn't talking about Joe Biden, but we are. We'd like to find out more about what his relationship was in Ukraine, how his son was making all of that money, and what Vice President Biden knew when he ended up pressuring that country to fire the prosecutor who had some responsibility over investigating Hunter Biden's company, Burisma Holdings. You are pursuing a number of lawsuits to get some answers on this question. What are you up to?
Well, we filed a lawsuit on just last week for documents on the decision to fire Shokin. What was involved in that? We sued the State Department. We had asked for the documents back in May, back when this story started percolating. We issued a series of FOIA requests, virtually none of which have been responded to substantively. So we began with the basic lawsuit of tell us about this firing that critics of Biden alleged, because based on Biden's own statements, that he did to at the pressure or using the pressure of withholding $1 billion of aid.
Yes.
Give us the details on it. And so the State Department, maybe after they're done leaking conversations they had with the president has had with foreign leaders, maybe the deep state can turn over the documents about the core corruption issue at the heart of this discussion is whether Biden abused his office to protect his son.
Now, you filed the FOIA request after that video became public of Biden claiming that he had Shokin fired. So that was before all of this came out now about the phone call from the president on July 25th. Is that right? So you filed this before?
Yes, exactly right. And the timing isn't about the phone call. It's the stories began building in May of this year, more or less. But it's been out there for several years, the Biden's conflicts of interest because of his son's business activities abroad. But the stories began building this year, and Rudy Giuliani made a point, as he said, of running on this and pushing on for information on this because he ran into this issue investigating Russiagate and the illegal spying on President Trump. He ran into the Biden issue. So they see this coming, and sure enough, they compile raw intelligence data, it looks like, illegally leak it, but call it a whistleblower complaint in order to help shut down this new facet of the investigation into the collusion and conspiracy with Ukraine, Russia to target Trump and protect themselves.
I want to go back to the FOIA request because it seems like every time we have you in here because you filed FOIA requests and Judicial Watch then has to sue in order to actually get the information because your FOIA requests are not honored. Who is giving you the most problems when it comes to this? Is there a specific branch of the government, a specific department that you know you're going to be stonewalled and you're not going to get what you want?
Well, the State Department's been terrible in recent years because the Clinton email scandal essentially upended the Freedom of Information Act process. The government went into cover-up mode and refused to accommodate any requesters. But at the end of the day, I hate that phrase, but it's appropriate here, it's the Justice Department. Because the Justice Department defends all the agencies, puts their legal positions and creates their legal positions in court. And so when we're in court asking for documents, it's the Justice Department defending the lawlessness of the various agencies, including themselves, in not complying with the law. And if you had let's say you were breaking the law all the time, and you went to your attorney and said, "Oh, don't worry about it, I'll take care of it in court." That's an attorney that isn't going to solve the problem of you breaking the law. Right. The Justice Department is supposed to represent the administration's legal position. And the legal position of the administration is, who cares if the law isn't followed on the secrecy and transparency? And it results in this a criminal conspiracy against the President of the United States because this lack of transparency has led to this feeling of invincibility by the deep state that they can do whatever they want and no one's going to call them on it because they won't see what they've been doing.
And this is a legacy from the Obama administration where it was even worse. I still have outstanding FOIA requests from the Obama years that have not been responded to yet. I think that's a little outside the 30 days they have to get back. Let me tell you, you were talking about Joe Biden and what he did or didn't know about his son's business activities. Now, he has claimed, quote, "I have never spoken to my son about his overseas business dealings." I know Trump deserves to be investigated. He's violating every basic norm of a president. You should be asking him why he's on the phone with a foreign leader, trying to intimidate a foreign leader. You should be looking at Trump, Joe Biden says to the press. But this idea that he doesn't know anything about his son's overseas business dealings. Fox News last night, Tucker Carlson, publishing a photo from 2014 showing Joe and Hunter Biden golfing with the executives from Burisma Holdings in the Hamptons. Now, Tom, I don't know how much you golf, but when you do that, it takes a couple hours. And what kind of things might come up if you were golfing with the executives from Burisma Holdings?
Only their grandkids and yoga, right? And of course, Biden's own son contradicts him, because if you read this New Yorker article, which everyone should, on Hunter Biden that was published about a month or two ago, Hunter Biden confirms that his father said, I hope you know what you're doing with this business dealings you're involved in. He said, don't worry, Dad, I got it covered. So in the least, you've got that discussion about his business,
right,
in the sense that Joe Biden was worried about it.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. And he wasn't the only one. There were people in the Obama administration who were worried as well. Biden pushed ahead anyway.
Well, if you read the New York Times and the Washington Post over the last several years of the Obama administration and other mainstream publications like Politico, you'd see that was a repeated issue.
Yes.
And but now that's supposed to go into the memory hole
Right.
as part of the coup effort to get President Trump.
We're going to ask you more about these pair of reports from the New York Times and the Washington Post overnight about Bill Barr's activities to get to the bottom of the Russia meddling investigation and how all of that began in the first place. More with Tom Fitton in a second. Tom Fitton, president of Judicial Watch, in studio with us now. Tom, there were two reports out last night. One in the Washington Post, headlined, Barr personally asked foreign officials to aid inquiry into CIA FBI activities in 2016. That report details how Bill Barr and John Durham, the U.S. attorney, were just in Italy last week questioning foreign officials about all of that. And then in the New York Times, they say Trump pressed Australian leader, that would be Mr. Morrison, to help Barr investigate Mueller inquiry's origins. That report says that that's at the request of Bill Barr, who said, hey, could you ask the Australians to help us out? What do you make of these reports and the media's treatment of them?
Well, these are leaks designed to obstruct justice. I don't know how else to describe it. There's an investigation going on that has criminal implications, and someone is leaking classified conversations with foreign leaders. Remember, when the president talks to a foreign leader, the contents of that conversation are classified. And why do we know? Because we asked for Barack Obama's communications with foreign leaders about Benghazi, transcripts of which were in Hillary Clinton's emails, and the Trump administration wouldn't give them to us. So this is the leaking of classified information designed to subvert an obstruction, to subvert a criminal investigation. And there's everything that is going on is perfectly appropriate. And I'm glad the president is calling these foreign leaders. I'm glad Barr is taking a personal interest in this, because nothing's going to be done without the committed personal leadership of the president and the attorney general. Because if they leave this to the deep state, we see what will happen.
Yes.
They want to criminalize any investigation of them, meaning the Democratic operatives and the deep staters who were illegally spying on President Trump, breaking the law to try to overthrow a president. And it's continuing through this impeachment that is, in my view, really a coup.
Are you doing any kind of looking for information on Hunter Biden and China and the deals with China, the involvement with a high-ranking Chinese businessman who was charged with corruption and bribery? And the first call he made after he was charged was to Joe Biden's brother, James Biden. And James Biden said, well, I think the call was meant for Hunter, because Hunter was representing this guy. He was involved with this guy.
Yeah, we are investigating. We have FOIA requests on virtually everything we're talking about here. And what I think is very interesting is how the Chinese picked up these Biden-connected people. So they're no longer available, presumably, to talk to anybody. Not that they would be easy to communicate with to begin with. But are the Chinese helping out their friends Biden by coming up with corruption charges against these individuals and taking them off the map? I think that's a fair question.
This Biden thing, always at its core, no matter what other details come out about it, just the fact that Joe Biden's family was financially benefiting and profiting off of his name, as you had foreign companies and even the government of China looking to exploit that access specifically because of his name, That should already tell voters everything they need to know about Joe Biden and corruption.
And it's par for the course in the Obama administration. You had the Secretary of State and then presidential candidate Hillary Clinton getting millions of dollars of speaking fees from foreign governments and their fronts laundered to her through her husband. You get $500,000, it goes to your spouse as well, and that's what Hillary Clinton was doing. Is it any surprise Biden was doing the same?
Amazingly, of course,
it was even less direct with Biden because it was his son getting the money.
All that Hillary money dried up after 2016 for some reason. Tom Fitton, president of Judicial Watch. Thanks as always. Keep up the good work.